Welcome to the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show, a broadcast service of globalbusinessnews.net.
Now, here's your host, Ed Cohen.
Hi, this is Ed in San Diego and Maui. And this is Global TV Talk Show, a service of globalbusinessnews.net. Inviting you all to go take a look at globalbusinessnews.net. You'll find some interesting stuff there with links to other shows and news and information about talent, mobility, business travel, leisure travel, and what's going on. So today's show is about travel, business travel, leisure travel, the industry, the mess that it's in, and also the hope going forward. I do want to say that Joanne and I are in Maui at our condo for a couple of weeks, and we had this booked 6 months ago and got canceled. And then we had it rebooked about 3 months ago, and that was changed. And then we rebooked it when Maui opened up after, I think it was October 15. And so here we are. But we had to get tested, the COVID test. We had to do it through the Alaska Airlines approved vendors. It was difficult to find one who would guarantee getting the test results done within the very specific time frame that Hawaii demanded. And if you didn't have that test, you couldn't get on the plane. But if you did it, if you got on the plane, then you couldn't go anywhere, and you would be under police order to stay inside for 2 weeks. So who needs that, right? So we got the test. We used one of their vendors who we never heard of before. It's called Carbon Health, Carbon. Check it out. It's legit. It's a hospital network based in Seattle, but they're very, very high tech, which was super cool. So we went to the San Diego airport. In the parking lot, they had tents set up. They had nurses. They had technicians. They had it all organized. It was super easy. It took like 15 minutes. They put the thing up the nose, but not all the way, only a little. And I said, how come? And they said to me, this is the newest version. The old doesn't mean anything anymore. So this will work, don't worry. And so they did that. Within 24 hours, they sent me a PDF saying that we passed, okay? Me and Joanne, thankfully. And then all of that is transferred into what's called a QR code. You have to fill out a form through Safe Travel Hawaii, which is their government thing. Questions about your health, where you're going, what illnesses have you had, things like that. It's easy questions, but you have to be truthful, and you sign your life away on that form. And it's all done electronically. And all of that information, including the test results, are put into a QR code, which they send you to your phone, just like that. And that's what you take with you to the airport on check-in, all right, at Alaska Airlines. And that's what you have to do when you land, in our case in Maui. And so landing in Maui, I'll talk about the flight in a minute, but landing in Maui, super organized. And they had people from the bus tour industry manning the check-in tables, and everyone had to show the QR code from their phone, all right? And it's okay to have paper printout, but you have to do it electronically. And so they had these young kids doing this for the most part. There's some older people, but mostly they're 30-somethings, 25-something. And they're all lined up in these restaurants. All the restaurants are closed, but at Maui Airport in the landing area, all the restaurants are open, not for food, but for check-in. And so the lines, not only from our flight, but from 4 or 5 others from New York, Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, LA, Phoenix. We flew in from San Diego. There must have been 1,000 people in a mile-long line, and it took over an hour just standing around, shuffling towards the desks. But it was all very pleasant, and everyone was happy to be there already. and everyone's wearing masks, right? And we finally get up to the desk, and you have to show the QR code and show your ID, and then the young person takes a tablet and clicks. All right, she got results, or he got results right away. They sign a form, give you the form, and he said, "Go." And so all that took like 2 minutes. And then we go find our baggage, which is all organized downstairs and out the door. All right. So, and we were there, and boy, I'll tell you, it was like elation, great feeling of success. We are finally there. Okay. So, our very special guest today are travel industry and event planning executives. Ed Salvato is very, very well known in leisure travel and is an adjunct professor at NYU, and also an adjunct professor at NYU is Dianne Devitt, who is an author of What Color Is Your Event? We'll get into that, but also a very experienced media trainer. So welcome, Dianne. Say hi and introduce yourself better than I just did. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
People love me on mute. Actually, thank you. Thanks so much for that. And it's nice to be on the show today. Yes, I mean, I've actually been in the travel industry through different niches of it. And Ed, you mentioned one I want to get back to, but destination management. Primarily, I focused on meetings and events and production. So that is my background, and I try to get in trouble as much as I can.
Very cool. Thank you again for being on our show.
Thank you.
Ed Salvato, please introduce yourself better than I did.
Sure, thank you. Also an Ed on a different island of Manhattan. But thank you for inviting me to your show. And it's such a pleasure to be on with Dianne. So I've been in like Dianne, in a lot of different aspects of travel, tourism, hospitality. Most people know me sort of as the editor-in-chief of an LGBTQ travel publication. I've been led a number of those over the years, but also I have become a bit of a specialist in marketing, and that's the subject that I teach for the most part at NYU at the Tisch Center of Hospitality.
Yep.
All right, very cool. All right, so let's talk about clean and safe travel. So our flight on Alaska was full except for a few seats in the back rows, and all the middle seats were empty. All right, but every other seat was full. And you order your food in advance online. All right, and everyone is by your seat number, and the flight attendants just bring it down the aisle. They knew exactly what it was. You know, it was all paid for. If you wanted a soft drink, they had that, but there's no liquor allowed. And the flight was easy, and it was clean and safe. There was absolutely no problem, which was very, very comforting, of course. So, Ed, the clean and safe aspects of travel management today, everybody's really putting on a good show of making sure that everyone's got the hand sanitizer when you walk into the supermarket or you walk in anywhere. And you know, my hands have become alcoholic. It's not so much what you drink, it's all this.
Through your pores.
Clever.
So what do you think about that? I mean, you know, everything I was just talking about. What do you think about that?
Yeah, your experience sounds really, really interesting, and it's good to see. You know, I think that airlines, like all travel transportation providers and other, you know, travel related providers, they are obviously thinking about cleanliness and hygiene and safety, and they have to continue to think about that. And it's in a sense, it's like it took a pandemic for airlines to like clean their trays, right? You know what I mean? Like, okay, so kind of hoping that a lot of these, right? I mean, a lot of it is theater. Let's just put that right on the table right now, right? So I mean, what really matters is, you know, masking and social distancing. But when you're literally on a plane that doesn't have the middle seat empty, you know, and someone's taking their mask off, germs don't, you know, viruses don't obediently remain in the mouth when someone's eating, and having their coffee. So there's a bit of theater involved, and then there's some harsh reality that there is some risky, there's some risk no matter what. Life is not risk free. But I think the idea that airlines and other providers are starting to really focus on safety is wonderful, and I hope they continue it forever, right? I mean, just in my gym, I'm glad to see the equipment cleaned every single day. I think all that cleanliness matters, right? But I think the reassurance part comes with what you're talking about: testing, access to testing, rapid results, and then these kind of complicated. It's going to complicate travel even more so. But I think it's a small price to pay to get the travel industry back, right? So it's really going to come down to, I think, really smart data and smart testing and rapid results, which we don't have. And I just think, it's going to take a long time to get that implemented. And Hawaii is a little bit easy a test case, because the only way to get there really is to fly. There's no other way to get there. But there's other destinations in New York City. People can just take a subway, take a PATH train, drive. How do you do what they do in Hawaii? So I think it's going to take a lot of thought, and we're just at the very baby step beginnings of what we have to do, which is this testing. I mean, think about when you go to Africa. I'm thinking about a safari next year. I have to show that I've had a vaccine against yellow fever and dengue. I think that the vaccine card is going to be a thing too for COVID.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one
Okay,
thing
Dianne.
the one thing, and I agree with what Ed was saying, is this, I'm more of the glass, with all due respect of all the suffering going on. There is a lot of good that is coming out of this year that has been long overdue. And just what, you were saying, Ed, is airlines should have been scrubbing the aircraft anyway. Bathrooms should have been kept. In other words, all of that, there's no excuse to not keep the compliancy that we've developed moving forward, because there's just so much we're always cautious about. But on a whole different subject, one of the things that has been pervasive in the events industry, specifically in the destination management part of the business. So just for the audience, destination management is a niche in travel and hospitality that is exactly what it sounds like. There are companies who are experts in their destination, whether it's Johannesburg or it's New York City or it's San Francisco. They know everything about that city and the locale to work with incoming predominantly corporate groups. And then there are, in the leisure travel, of course, Ed, then there are the experts who are independent tour operators who are experts in that destination. The first and foremost core service that they offer is logistical management. They're experts. They're experts in organizational skills and in project management. And so when you brought out how efficient the operation was in Hawaii, I can't help recall in my experience working, when you have 10,000 people at a meeting, there has to be a structure. There has to be a formula for registration, for signing up for tours, for signing up for dinner. So when you take that logistical knowledge and that ability and you transfer it to airport management, where you don't see the restaurants as restaurants, but actually spaces to use for a service, it taps in the question of why aren't other airports using the services of the local destination management and event management people who are out of work, right? First to go, last to come back.
Good point. Good point. Ed, in your classrooms, and also Dianne, in your classrooms, what can you teach the students from what we're just talking about now?
Oh, I wasn't sure where you're going with that, but well, interestingly enough, I teach in person, and our classrooms are socially distant. Everyone's masked. There's a lot of signage everywhere for how to walk through the building and which door to go in, which door to go out, and we have a protocol for, daily screening and weekly tests. Anyway, so, but what it's funny with school, for my advice to the guidance I'm getting for next term is it can't be COVID every day. You can't do COVID every day. I mean, I think they're trying to tell teachers, you just can't talk about COVID every day. I think the students are getting kind of sick of it. But for my perspective has always been the response, first of all, this earlier in the term, like how are destinations and other travel providers and companies and DMOs, whatever, responding, and what works and what hasn't worked, and what do you students think about it? Next, we're talking, I've been talking a lot about recovery. Like, how are we preparing for the recovery, and what are the best practices right now? Let's examine what some organizations are doing that seem to be really smart and seem to be really working, and others that, we'll debate and discuss. But it's been about preparing them a little bit for that. And also in a practical level, we've been trying to, since we have the technology in the classrooms with these huge screens and we could Zoom someone in and for like 10 minutes, I've been Zooming in a lot of experts to come in and just speak for 10 or 15 minutes. They also provide a little connectivity to the students, so the students can, connect with them on LinkedIn and send them emails, ask them about internships, whatever. I just think getting the students just to feel like it's not hopeless, that there's some glimmer of something out there. And I've been trying to let them think about, you're in the sort of COVID era in school. It's actually not a bad time to be here. First of all, because you're not out in the job market, which is kind of awful. But when people are ready to hire again, and they're already hiring, you're really well positioned if you're really soaking in it, so to speak, and really thinking about every aspect of it. Those are some of the kind of ideas I've been thinking about with our students, and they're finished this semester, and I think they're really happy to be done.
Yeah, I didn't realize you taught in person, Ed.
Yeah, is that crazy? I'm like one of 20% apparently. I thought it was more, but the building does feel kind of empty, and I don't bump into that many professors, other teachers. But yeah, 20. And then I have had very small classes anyway, but I have had 30% who come in. Most of them, the ones who Zoom in are based in Sao Paulo, China, like it's crazy. But then I have had people cycling in and out, like, oh, I was supposedly exposed to coronavirus, so I'm going to stay here I'm going to quarantine, this and that. So it's been a really great option, this platform that we have, Zoom, which we all bumbled through the first semester. It is turning out, I think it's enhancing the teaching experience, and I think it's here to stay too.
Oh yeah. So I changed completely to virtual last March. And to your point, of course, last year, March, because we all went on the magic carpet ride for the 3 months and just did what we had to do. This semester, see, I will love a hybrid situation when that allows it, for couple of the reasons that you just picked up. First of all, my class is 2 to 4:30, but I have 2 students in China and I have 1 in India. And when we started, I said, you know what, guys, you're going to be in the travel industry and you're 20 years old. When I was 20, being up at 2 a.m. was not a problem. So the only socialization that you have right now in terms of building a network is to be online, because it's funny how we've all changed into using the word live, but we mean live virtually. We don't mean live physically. So It's a really interesting transition with that. But just to your point, I agree with Ed. I don't speak about the COVID. I teach in 2 worlds. I teach them as the physical, and then I teach them the adaptation that is never going to go away in their generation. But also I reinforce how they will always be the 2020 students, and they will always have that knowledge. And what I've noticed, and what I noticed last semester, is they're smart, and they're grabbing on to this hybrid and this virtual platform like you and I could never imagine. I mean, Ed, do you see that? I have my students, yeah. I am blown away by how they are looking forward to the travel industry and the prospects that it can bring.
I agree with that. I think, they're getting used to these tools and platforms that, for instance, our industry, more your industry really, meetings. I attended an in-person meeting in Orlando, and it was a little clunky and a little bootstrappy, but they had people Zooming in who were content providers who didn't want to fly all the way to Orlando for whatever reason. And they had live streaming for those attendees who also couldn't come or didn't want to come or didn't want to travel. So those two things are going to happen moving forward. I think you're probably a really engaged, I'm guessing you're really an engaging professor, and that you have your students feel like they're every bit as part of that lesson, that they can't call it in, they're really part of it. And I think it takes a little bit of a special skill. I've been talking to my students, and they love coming in person. Because one of them said, I don't have other distractions. I have to pay attention, because they have their phones, and so you as the instructor, the burden really falls on you to kind of really draw them in. So what I did with my students initially, I said to the students the first day, I was like, it's a pact. We have a pact, which is we're learning how to be great hospitality providers. Part of hospitality is creating satisfied customers, right? We think about each other as teammates and customers. And so we have to think about, how do we engage our fellow students in the class, but also make our online students feel just as valued and just as engaged and just as important. So I kind of try to make it part of their career learning. Like, this is what we need to do as hospitality providers. And I really feel like the online folks were as part of it as everyone else. It took effort, and I think everyone had to be engaged in that. So I think that's a real challenge. I hope we can move back to more in person.
But I'm going to switch over with that, like, to Edwin Cohen.
The other end.
is whether it's students in a class, because the topic today, right, travel, is I received an email from the Riviera Maya coast, and I have to tell you, boy, turning on that video was like a lifesaver during the day for me. So I think, whether you're students or you're just, as an audience member, as a person, looking at travel now and thinking of the possibilities that move forward is something that's percolating in everybody's head.
And now a word from our co-sponsors. Our programs wouldn't happen without the wonderful support of our advertisers. Here they are.
Something that's really neat is that the Bridge School partners with various organizations to provide learning for their students. For example, we partner with a major ballet company, and we are able to enroll several of their students into our school. So now not only is the student able to participate in a school and have a seamless transition while they're very active in their ballet career, but now they have other dancers that are with them that are doing some of the same courses. So it's almost becoming a camaraderie where they're taking similar courses, they're working together on their ballet, and really being able to form this great partnership with these organizations to provide a needed service. A lot of times there are student athletes who will spend hours and hours at the gym or at the basketball courts, wherever it is. And if they're attending a traditional school, they're in school from 8 to 3. They get a quick snack, and then they're at the gym for 3 to 4 hours in the evening. Coming to us and having that partnership, they're able to break that up throughout the day. They can have a morning practice, get some schooling in, have an afternoon practice, finish their schooling in the evening. So there's that flexibility. And additionally, if there are tournaments or performances, it's fantastic, because if there's a week where they have shows straight through, they can take that week off of learning and then pick back up when they're done. So it offers this great flexibility. And for the program owners of these sports leagues, it is a win-win situation for them, because they see this need. They see this need that their students need to make sure that they are obtaining the grades necessary to be successful adults in our country and in other countries. But it provides them an environment where they can be successful at both.
This episode from the meeting room of Global TV Talk Show is brought to you by
The Bridge School, the accredited international online private school of choice, at bridgek12.org.
Porch Light Rental and Destination Services. Reduce your renter lump sum or managed relocation costs. Visit them at porchlightrental.com.
CubeMonk, featuring the world's first smart cube. Track your goods with our advanced GPS system. Welcome to the future of moving and relocation at cubemonk.com.
Primestone Partners, featuring corporate, government, and developer housing solutions, as well as senior-level advisory services. Find them at primestonepartners.com.
And by heirs.com. With our full range of services, we can help design and manage your international relocation. Find us at heirs.com.
Insured Nomads provides protection and peace of mind, with health insurance, travel insurance, group, or tailored insurance for the globally mobile. Visit us at insurednomads.com.
And by International Auto Source. We are the vehicle experts for expats, featuring all major brands of automobiles with flexible solutions and financing. On the web at intlauto.com.
Hi, my name is Christine. I'm a nurse from the Philippines, and I got to know IAS through Worldwide Health Staff Solutions. And I want to thank IAS, especially to Matthew, for helping me get my car stress-free, headache-free. And so I just want to show you the car that I got. So it's a RAV4 XLE 2020.
As an expat moving to the USA, relocating is exciting, but it can also be stressful. Getting a car, truck, or SUV for personal transportation is usually a high priority. That's where International Auto Source comes in. We make getting the vehicle you want for your work assignment or academic program easy, so you're ready to drive when you arrive. Our product specialists have helped over 50,000 expatriates with their personal transportation needs, making us the largest international auto retailer in the world. International Auto Source gives you flexible payment options to buy, lease, or rent a vehicle from the world's leading auto brands, arrange financing on a purchase or lease without a U.S. credit history, social security number, or driving record, get full insurance coverage, and get approved easily through our low-rate factory-backed financing programs. And because we're an authorized distributor of the world's leading automotive brands, our no-haggle prices are competitive, and the buying experience is hassle-free. We'll even guarantee your new vehicle will be ready the day you arrive. With over 20 years of experience in the global community, we are the vehicle experts for expats. We are International Auto Source.
So I watch a lot of the older Rick Steves, a tour walk around Europe and that kind of an approach. And I like it, you know, it's fun just to zoom in and out. But and then I've gotten into the YouTube aspect of just going to area economic development organizations as well as tour packagers and look at their videos and just, you know, imagine all the things, all the places. And I would think a lot of people are doing that too. So what I'm developing in this life as a Zoom TV producer and broadcast host is to expand this travel show that we're on right now. And, you know, Dianne, it's great to have you here. Two Eds are better than one, and and we have a different perspective here. Three ways. I'm sort of the corporate travel thing, business travel. Ed, a very specific aspect of leisure for the most part, and destination management. So Dianne Devitt, destinations, 3Ds. You're in
Yeah,
3D, not 2D.
sometimes.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what I'd like to do is welcome you guys back in sometime in January, where we have hopefully peace and stability and better health for everybody out there, and we could have some perspective on what we've learned and what we're doing now. Um, I want to learn more about the specific marketing, if you will, Ed, to your niche market that you focus on.
Sure.
And um, I respect all that, but there are some very, very technical aspects of marketing to this group. They're generally speaking above average in income and very, very knowledgeable about the specific things that they want to do and that they're catered to in many, many resorts and areas. So if we can zoom in for a couple of moments about anything you want to talk about in that regard. um, we have a diverse audience for this program, and I fully want to not really exploit, but explore the opportunity here to communicate.
Sure, absolutely. The niche Ed is referring to as the LGBTQ travelers. The LGBTQ travel segment, we'll call it a community. LGBTQ really is a community term, doesn't refer to one person. And so when we talk about this segment, we really, kind of from a marketing perspective, you kind of drill down into the getting heads in beds bit, which is, of this LGBTQ community. The great, the travelers you're mostly focusing in on are the dual income, no kids. So that's like two gay men together, or two lesbians, gay women together, typically with no kids, say. And so that's your sweet spot. And we've seen in past crises, and they seem to occur every 10 years. So 9/11 crisis, right after that, we saw, and this was both observed and documented, the gay or queer traveler was resilient right out front on that travel kind of, and a lot of marketers noticed that and then said, hey, let's think about this segment, let's think about how we want to exploit or explore this segment. Then 10 years later, with the crisis, 2008, 2009, the economic crisis, again, we saw a lot of resilience with this segment. And then here we are 10 years later, and there's a lot of research that suggests there's a lot of pent-up demand, but particularly with this segment, we're thinking that they're going to help lead the recovery. And there's a couple of reasons for that we can go into, but the reasons that people love this segment is the segment tends to travel more spontaneously, more frequently. They tend to spend more money when they travel. Again, not having sort of kids allows you to take a little bit of that school money and shift it around a little bit. They tend to be more resilient. Even if their household is making a little bit less money, they just shift their priorities are always travel. So they shift a little bit of their budget back to travel. And also the idea of risk. Queer people have been traveling with risk mitigation and risk management for the millennia that they've been traveling, because
Forever, yeah.
Very few people really just welcome and warmly embrace queer people. It's usually like abuse and discrimination and, worse, murder and, death. There's 72 countries that criminalize homosexuality. So simply two men or two women together, say they're married, they get off the plane in Botswana, which is a lovely country, don't get me wrong, but technically they're not legally married. Technically they're criminals. And also with respect to gay men, especially, gay men have been traveling with the threat of a virus, HIV that causes AIDS, for decades. And so the idea of risk management around that is baked into the queer person's DNA. So those are some really strong, fundamental, foundational reasons to really think about this. And I think, we talked about before we get on air is like, this kind of leads into that sort of idea of diversity, equity, inclusion. You want to be sort of inclusive, both in terms of your marketing, but also your welcome, how you welcome these people legitimately. Because if you market to a queer person, a queer couple, and they show up and your staff isn't ready for that and they have no idea what they're looking at, two women with a biracial kid or whatever, it's like, wow, they'll lean away from that. They won't lean into that, which you don't want with your customer, to satisfy customers. So anyway, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think the LGBTQ travel segment, specifically gay men, dual income, no kids segments, are a really good one for a lot of your potential listeners to think about as they're thinking about how we rebuild during the recovery, how we rebuild our travel marketing and hospitality welcoming DNA.
Well, I welcome that into January, if it's convenient for you to come back on our show, or we could do a deep dive. So, Dianne, to me, hospitality management is theater, it's showbiz, it's displaying, and it's not fake it till you make it, but everyone's trained to behave and look and act in a certain way. And they're doing that so that the customer could mirror that, and then the whole experience is elevated, and everyone says, "Oh, whoa, that was fun," rather than be afraid. They're into the positive and into having a good time and displaying it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's actually a whole movement going on in that area too, in the whole travel industry, hospitality industry at large. I actually just 2 days ago did a presentation called The Theater of Virtual Events, how to think like a producer and produce like a director. I am pushing the use of 2 different types of planning roles: meeting planner, as we may traditionally know it, logistically and physically on site in travel, and then meeting producer, who will be the equivalent in the virtual world. And the true hybrid meeting will be when those 2 people plan that at 4 p.m. in that meeting, when the CEO, Ed knows where I'm going, when the CEO raises his toast, that you're at home and you have your champagne. Raise the toast at the same time. And that will be the true test of the talent of the planner, who's in charge of it all. But I think that there's also, I just wanted to point out one thing in travel that has been predicted for months. And I really loved what you said, by the way, Ed, about the DINK. One thing that came to me is it's the most open community, in my experience, and that's where the destination has to be as open as well, right? I did not realize 72 countries. 72 is quite significant.
Yeah.
And anyway, but the prediction for travel, as we get this big mega machine, interlocking again, is that we will all start traveling local, which some of us are doing as we can. I'm talking predominantly for corporate, for meetings and for getting the ship back from business. First, it will be local, then it will be regional, where we can drive and feel comfortable bringing people together. Domestic and international will of course be last. And so I think, just knowing that, it gives us a predictability that maybe next year at this time, things might be fully ahead looking into 2022. So I think that's something that, we all, like you just went to Hawaii and you went through all the precautions, and that's wonderful. And you can afford to take the risk. You took a risk. Yep. You and your wife took a risk to go because you can. You don't have children. You're not a caregiver. And I think this is, you all know my situation is I live at home with a 91-year-old. My executive producer, I'm working with a video person. He's with his 2 parents who are in their 90s. So some of us have other concerns, that we need to think about. But travel itself will never go away. Right. Our desire to explore and visit, and I mean, I I can't wait to hear the noise of a jet engine. I just can't wait. So I don't know that, but that's kind of my feeling is with all of it, is that it will take its time, but people will definitely travel again.
So we need to bring this to a close. I thank you guys for being on the Global TV Talk Show. Dianne, how can people get in touch with you?
DianneDevitt.com, DianneDevitt. I'll put it in chat. Thank you, Ed.
Yeah, and Ed?
Very similar. EdSalvato.com. I'll do the same. I'll put it in chat.
Yeah, okay, great. All right, well, thanks. Welcome you guys to come back in January sometime. Say a month from now or so, and I'll be in touch. Thanks very much for
Listen,
being
can we come to Hawaii and do the show with you, all compliant, of course?
You mean in reality? Yes, virtually anytime. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Okay, ciao.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the meeting room at Global TV Talk Show.
Have a wonderful day, and stay safe.